I'm your host with my publication, Natural Awakenings magazine. I am also the Education Committee co-chair for San Diego Americans for Safe Access, and someone who has helped Joshua Crusoe put this event together. So thank you so much for coming. Thank you for paying attention to our sponsors, especially our title sponsor, Clover Dispensary here. And then also, thank you to our candidates for all showing up today. I don't think most people understand how busy their schedules are, so I do really appreciate you all for being here. And we had a panel earlier with a lot of people who were the firsts in the cannabis industry, and I was told this afternoon that this is the first time that all 6 candidates have sat together, so I'd like to take credit, but I think it's cannabis. And before I introduce our moderator, Dallin Young, I would like to take a chance to introduce you to each candidate so you can know who they are. So I'll start over at the end. We have Tasha Williamson, Barbara Bree, Rich Ryle, Gita Applebaum Singh, Todd Gloria, and Scott Sherman. And with that, I will introduce Dallin Young, who is from the Association of Cannabis Professionals, and he will be our moderator today.
Thank you all for being here today. Very excited about this opportunity to talk to our mayoral candidates about our favorite topic, cannabis. I'm going to give each of the candidates 2 minutes just to introduce themselves, talk about themselves a little bit. Vanessa will be holding time for everybody. She has signs that say 30 seconds, 10 seconds, and stop. So please, yes. And you'll hear a bell at stop. Also, as we go through the questions, we got about 6 questions already, and then a bunch of questions from the audience here. So the first 6 questions will give each candidate 1 minute to respond. Once again, you'll see the timer there with I'm holding time. All right, so I'm excited to get started here. So also with the questions, we're going to go ahead and start with Councilmember Scott Sherman for the first question, and then we'll move on to Assemblymember Gloria for the second, to go first on the second question, and then down the line, just so everybody has a chance to go first on each of these questions. So I guess first off, we'll also start with Councilmember Sherman. So just go ahead and introduce yourselves. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here today. Just a little bit about myself. I'm a San Diego native. Well, almost a native. I've lived here since I was 4 months old, so I think it qualifies. Small business owner since I was 24 years old. Started out my own little landscape company. Found myself divorced 5 years later and raising a 2-year-old daughter by myself, so I got rid of that company. Got into the insurance world as an independent contractor. Worked my way up in the family business. Bought the business. We ran it from 3 people when we started about 27 years ago, sold it 4 years ago with about 40 or so employees. So we kind of made a fair little living for ourselves, and then decided I wanted to give back to San Diego, the city that's been so good to me over these years. So I listened to some people who asked me to run for council, and I won my first election ever in 2012 for city council, won by 54 votes, so make sure you get out and vote. Your vote does count. Was reelected in 2016 by about around 60% or so, so didn't do anything to get fired. And my entire time at City Hall, I've done what I've done in business, and that's to where I try and bring a straightforward, common sense attitude to government, to a place where your handshake is your bond, and that's what means something to you at the end of the day. I think I try and do what I believe is right. Sometimes you believe in it, sometimes you don't, but that's okay. My job is to do what I think is right for all of San Diego, and that's kind of the way I've governed. I've been chair of the city's audit committee for 5 years now, where we've uncovered a whole bunch of different operational deficiencies at the city, all with the premise in mind of trying to improve city services for you, the taxpayers, and give you the best bang for your buck. So that's what I've been doing for the last 7 years, and now I think it's time to bring that common sense from the council to the mayor's office. Thank you.
So as we move through these, please hold your applause just so we're going to be kind of tight on time. So give everybody applause at the end. Thank you.
Sure, when I get to speak. Thank you, Dallin. Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you to all of you for making some time for us this afternoon. My name is Todd Gloria, and I'm running to be mayor of San Diego. I've been we've been in this election for a year now. I want to tell you, I'm a third-generation San Diegan, which means I know where our city has been. I'm the son of a hotel maid and a gardener, which says I know how hard it is to make ends meet in a town as expensive as San Diego. Importantly, I have a vision for where I'd like to take us. And if I had to describe it broadly speaking, I think it's time that San Diego operates like the big city that it is, rather than the small town it too often operates like. Some of that small town mentality was on display when, long after voters of California approved compassionate use, San Diego never got around to passing regulations to address this issue. And we created a circumstance that was really untenable. I've been working on the issue of cannabis since I was elected to office. I worked closely with my colleague, Councilmember Marty Emerald, to establish a medical marijuana task force where we invited citizen input that created the first ordinance for retail sales in San Diego, for dispensaries. That was passed in 2014, and while that bill was very much an issue, a product of compromise, I think it was important to finally get something on the books to create a legal structure for which people can begin to grow this industry. Fast forward to today, we have passage of Prop 46, we have adult use in the state, and the time has come for us to look at this again. We should figure out a way to make sure the entrepreneurs and the early investors who are working in this space are rewarded, and that we do all that we can to tamp down the illicit market. I recently had the opportunity to speak at the Business of Cannabis class at City College. It was so awesome to watch all these young students who understand and can see a future in this industry if we allow it to be. We have to look at taxation, at zoning, and a number of other issues that are really hamstringing this industry and creating a circumstance of the black market, and those who don't want to operate by the rules continue to thrive, and those who are following the rules are being hampered. I think the city can do better. The time, again, is for us to start acting like a world-class city. I think a world-class city ought to have a functional cannabis economy. I look forward to talking to you more about it this afternoon.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Geeta Abelbaum. I'm a resident of San Diego for 40 years. I'm an immigrant woman. I came here from Trinidad and Tobago. I was a teenager. So I did the work myself up. So I was a nurse's aide, a LVN, a ADN RN, a BSN RN. And I got married to a young doctor. And then I had 3 children, and I went back in my 40s and became a family nurse practitioner. So I'm a medical provider. I also have a nonprofit. For me, I heal with love. And we are a disconnected San Diego. I want to see us come together as a people. I want to see us help heal the homeless population, which is growing every single day. And homelessness can look like you and I. It doesn't look like a meth or a heroin strong person. We have to control rent. We have to control housing. The median rate for house is $500,000. I can't afford that. I don't know how many people here can afford that. I don't think Sasha and I can. But you know what? We want to invest in cannabis. We want to invest. I'm for women and people of color having fair opportunities in San Diego, and that's my mission. I'm here to always inspire anybody, and I am running to be mayor of San Diego to inspire every woman, every child that you can lead. And that's why I'm running. That's the only reason. Thank you.
That's a tough act to follow. The reason we're here is we all love San Diego. Everybody on this panel that's running for mayor, everybody out here in the audience who's looking for a candidate to vote for. I came here in 1953. I was a military brat. My father brought us to San Diego. He graduated from the Citadel. I graduated from the Citadel. When you graduate from the Citadel, you're required to give back to your community. 30 years ago, my father and I sat down and decided what we would do for the city of San Diego. We came up with 2 great ideas. Stop the sale of city-owned land and term limits. The next idea was, how rich are you going to implement these ideas? My dad and I came up with the idea that I would run for mayor, and I did. And I came out of nowhere and ended in the top 20%, not because I had name identification and not because I had a lot of money. I won because I had great ideas. San Diego loved the idea of term limits. They loved the idea of stopping the sale of city-owned land and leasing it instead. And had we done that, we would be like the Port District today. The Port District does not charge taxes. They merely lease their land. We lost 50,000 acres between the time when I ran for mayor and today because we gave it away to the developers. If we want to address homelessness, if we want to make San Diego affordable, if we want to allow people the opportunity to live here, we as citizens need to control the land, and that means that we have to get the developers out of San Diego and let them come in and sell us back our land. And the way we do it is when they come to us and they say, I need a rezoning, we say, fine, you give us the land, we'll lease it back to you, we'll give you the rezoning, but eventually the land comes back to us. Ladies and gentlemen, we love San Diego. When you're voting, look for the best ideas and vote for the candidate who has the best ideas.
Good afternoon. I'm Barbara Bree, and I'm honored to be running for mayor. Before I ran for public office for the first time in 2016, I was a journalist, a high-tech entrepreneur, and I started 2 organizations that empower women, Athena San Diego and Run Women Run. I got to City Hall, and quite frankly, I was astounded to find a culture of no accountability and no transparency. You may have experienced this yourselves. And I stood up to this culture immediately. I opposed the Soccer City land grab. I was the first elected official to do so. I demanded an independent audit of the water department, and I've been a leader in trying to uncover the fiasco at 101 Ash Street, which you may have been reading about recently. I have long supported legalization of this industry. I voted to support the legalization of medical marijuana, and I voted to support Proposition 64. And when my mother, Adelaide Bree, was terminally ill with cancer of the pancreas, I was pleased that she had access to legal cannabis, and it made a difference in her pain and suffering. As a council member, my office wrote the ordinance that we passed. It was actually written by a young attorney, Daniel Orloff, who was my deputy policy advisor at the time. I believe strongly in legalizing every part of the supply chain, which very few other cities have done, and in allowing for delivery services.
Please.
I'm very proud that it passed the council 6-3, and I look forward to working with the industry and the public on what the next steps for this growing industry should be. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Tasha Williamson, and I'm going to talk about the cannabis industry. I'm not going to talk about anything else. I want to make sure that you all have equity, that you guys are educated as well to know who is really for you and who is not. I am not supported by a police officers association that is one of the strongest obstacles to cannabis. I am not one who is cheap on talk and gives empty promises. I'm talking about making sure that people understand that cannabis is more than rolling a joint. That cannabis has products by the hundreds of millions of dollars, and that if we open this industry, that we will employ many people that will bring revenue to this city. Nobody is talking about that. Nobody's talking about construction, clothing. No one is talking about the real impacts and the way we can thrive in this city with the cannabis industry. What they are talking about is things that they've done, but they've not managed and they've not regulated. They're talking about taxes where people actually provide thousands of dollars to get into the industry, and then that money is lost, and we have no transparency as to where it goes. No one's talking about those things. Let's talk about that. Let's get real today. Let's be 100. Don't be fooled. Stop being played by popularity and stop being played by people who have been career politicians. The people sitting here with me have been here 4 to 10 years and nothing has changed. Everything lacks equity, including the cannabis industry. Everything is about the rich getting richer. Everything is about empty promises that they have not done. I'm talking about real change, a change agent that has done the work, that will do the work, that is courageous and bold enough to change this industry and make it thrive, make it into the billions and trillions that it can be, that will help drive the economy of San Diego, that will reduce our debt and increase our surplus. Thank you. My name is Tasha Williamson. If you want real change, vote for me March 3rd.
All right, thank you all very much. All right, so we'll move on to our first question. Once again, each candidate has 1 minute to respond. So first question, if mayor, what are some of the immediate changes you would make to the city's current cannabis ordinances?
Well, first I would try and change the tax that has been placed on cannabis by a lot of politicians. I was one of the only ones to vote against the extra tax that was cannabis specific. Because what happens then is you end up driving it back underground to where it used to be, and that's not what anybody wants. I'm for fairness. You know, let's make it the same as we do for alcohol and tobacco and cannabis. Just make it the same across the board, and then you don't have to worry about it. Unfortunately, a lot of politicians who think in a political way, the minute they heard that cannabis was going to be legalized, those green dollar signs popped up in their eyes, and the Pavlovian response started because they thought it meant extra money to the city. So far that they overstepped their bounds and they put a tax that was way above and beyond what should be. One of the first things I would look at is regressing that tax back to where it looks like everybody else's.
So I would say that we need to, absolutely, as I mentioned in my opening, reopen the ordinance and look at ways to open up the market. When we passed this, it envisioned 36 dispensaries, 4 in every city council district. We are not near that number, and we should look for ways to make sure that we are allowing that. I think the inequitable distribution, where we have a concentration of businesses only in certain areas, really result in certain communities not having direct access, also not only to product but also to the jobs and to the investment and to the opportunity, and we should look at changing that. I think taxation is obviously proven to be too high, particularly for a nascent market that we're trying to create. We should look at how we can be assistive with that. And then there's this equity piece that I think is so important. And when we think about the money that is flowing in, where are we directing those dollars, particularly in the context of the historic experiences with marijuana, and particularly making sure that this is not just the province of well-financed companies, but an opportunity for small and local folks, women and people of color to have access to be able to make money in this industry. I think the city can lead on those things.
Yes. If mayor, what are some of the immediate changes you would make to the city's current cannabis ordinances?
So obviously the tax is at 33% right now. And we want to make sure it doesn't go up, but we want to reduce it. And I would work on reducing it to 15% right away. Now, there is definitely a problem with the underground cannabis and the dispensaries. We want to dialogue about this. We want to have open forum with the two worlds, how we can get the underground world to be legal. That it's fair for everybody. I absolutely have been trying to have a healing center for 10 years now. I recently became a nonprofit, and I want to do everything with cannabis. Produce it, plant more trees, hemp products, make it available to people. And that is my promise to San Diego, to have a functional healing center, a farm, and I want to have a community of healers that care about the lives of people. Thank you so much. Every time somebody presses their heart, I feel so encouraged, because that's my heart, is to help heal. Because I know how hard it is to be a woman and struggle. Thank you.
I've been working in the legalization of marijuana since 1998. I've been on every steering committee to legalize marijuana in this city, including the successful Prop 64 campaign. And I want to tell you right now that every time I was on a steering committee, I went to every one of the elected officials and I asked them to endorse it. And they absolutely refused because it was the kiss of death for their political careers. Now that we've got it legalized, the rich campaign donors are the ones that have the stores right now. It takes $100,000 to get through. It's real simple. We need to open up all of the licensing, so it's $500 to get a license. It is handled exactly the way we handle liquor stores. We need to open it up so that there isn't an illegal market. The fact that we still have 80% of the marijuana sold here in San Diego illegally sold, that's a loss of tax revenue to our city. And that's why, again, it goes to leadership. I will give you a change. Right now, if you want the way the things are continue right now, vote for those three. If you want serious change in the cannabis industry, Look at me.
So as mayor, my major goal is to ensure the continued success of the legal industry and to put the illegal industry out of business. For two reasons. Number one, we don't get any tax revenue from the illegal industry, and it's unsafe. We don't know if the product is safe for consumers. So it's a public safety issue as well as a revenue issue. So I want to work with the industry to figure out what tax rate is appropriate, because we need some taxes. And if we have more of the revenues flowing through the legal industry, we will get more tax revenue eventually, and it will be safer for consumers. My overall goal, though, as I look at this industry, which is growing, is to ensure equity in the industry, to ensure that the wealth that is created is spread out among more than just the people who were fortunate enough to get one of the licenses. That's why I'm a major proponent of what is called employee stock ownership. And there is a way to do this in the cannabis industry, probably through the collective bargaining process. I have met with an expert at UCSD. I've met with labor leaders. And this would be one of my goals as mayor, not that it would be from a city ordinance, but that I would use my bully pulpit to encourage this so that the wealth is widely shared.
Thank you. I want to definitely tell you guys that for a long time, we've been trying to figure out why none of these legislators and council members have actually taken people who have been arrested and impacted by this with life sentences for something that was legal before colonizers came, right? There were indigenous people that used and grew marijuana. And so it was here. It is medicinal. It is a medicine. It should not be taxed. And if we're going to talk about the illegalization of it, then we should also talk about some of those pharmaceutical companies that are killing us. Because we do not tax them. And they get trillions of dollars. When we have people who are running these businesses making $18 million a month, and we don't see a dime, but we see all the cost in healthcare. Let's really talk about it. Let's talk about the impacts that have been to whether you are wealthy or whether you are poor or in between. It has impacted you to be able to pay tens and thousands of dollars in taxes, fees, fines, whatever it is. Let's talk about medicinal. It's a medicine. It should not be taxed, and we should not be using our police force to demonize those who are trying to create business.
All right, thank you very much. All right, next question. Assemblymember Gore will start on this one. A couple people have actually talked about it, social equity. So people of color and women are dramatically underrepresented among San Diego's license holders, both for the marijuana production facilities and marijuana outlets. What can the city do to help increase diversity and inclusion of social equity in the cannabis industry?
It's a great question, because I think that while we have historic structures that have inequity built into them, the fact that we're creating something almost out of nothing really gives us an opportunity to create something right from the beginning. And as we look at expanding the market and making sure with an eye toward eliminating the illegal market, we should put equity at the front of this. And so I think it starts with the city being able to communicate clearly to communities that would like to participate in this what the process is. Many of you have shared with me just even this afternoon about how opaque the process is, how high the fees are, and that it really structures it in a way that some of the people you were talking about cannot even begin to access this market. So a lot of it's about education. I think secondarily, we create the structures to make sure that communities who have been over-policed historically and have dealt with the worst of the war on drugs can actually benefit from this on the flip side. And so the city has contracting processes that seek to try and elevate the voices of women and disabled folks and people of color, veterans, in the ability to contract with the city. We should do that in the cannabis space as well, and I think that we can. We have a history of doing this. We know how to do it in other settings. Let's apply that here, and let's say that as we're building this market, we build it with equity in mind.
So as a colored woman, it's very hard to do anything in America and San Diego. Even though you're educated and financially stable, it's very difficult. Myself, this is my second time running for mayor. I made it on the ballot this time. I have wanted to start a bank to help people. That's been my mission, is to start a bank to loan people money. I've contacted the San Diego Foundation to loan people money, and they wouldn't even interview me. The San Diego Foundation, to give people money. Money is the root of all evil. We need love. We need love, we need human compassion. And like Tasha said, it's a herb. I came from Trinidad and Tobago, where it's growing like wild weeds, right? I want to be a part of the medical community around the world to subscribe to cannabis as a panacea for everything in wellness. And I live and breathe cannabis because as a nurse practitioner, I do not want to prescribe crap to people. I don't take Tylenol, I don't take Advil, I do not take an antibiotic. I have 3 sons and they've never taken antibiotics. So there we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's about leadership. I can remember back when when the police were raiding the stores, the cannabis stores. I was there. I was on the lines with them. I was shouting, "Shame on you! Shame on you!" Do you remember that? We would go there and watch police officers take people that were our friends and neighbors out. And the real reason that we have this problem today, we think Prop 64 was just the one more step to the real process when we legalize it for America. But right now in San Diego, we need leadership. And we need leadership that are committed to the cannabis industry. And I've been committed to the cannabis industry since I was 21 years old. I understand that they've been lying to us. And we have to really look at creative ways. And the first way we've got to do is we've got to open up the process. So if you want to open up a store, it's as easy as opening up a grocery store. That's how easy it should be. This is a good product. Nobody has ever died of an overdose of marijuana. That's how good that drug is, and that's how important it is that we put it out in our community.
In my opening statement, I talked about a lack of accountability and transparency at City Hall, so that's number one with the cannabis industry, to make sure everybody understands the rules. Second, I talked about employee stock ownership and making sure that the industry hires those individuals who are most impacted by the war on drugs, impacted unfairly, and that they benefit financially from the growth of this industry through employee stock ownership. And third, it's about creating an entrepreneurial ecosystem. It's often said about the gold rush, that Levi Strauss made more money selling blue jeans than many of the gold miners made panning gold. So there is an entrepreneurial ecosystem taking place in San Diego. I just came from a tech conference in Rancho Bernardo where I met the founder, Marky Ismailian of Illuminescence. It's a company in Carlsbad. Do you know them? And they are being started to sort of measure the medical impacts of cannabis in a scientific way. We're going to create a zillion good companies like this in San Diego that are going to make a difference all over the world, not just to San Diego. This is what I've done for 30 years, and I want to make San Diego a leader in what I call the cannabis services ecosystem.
I think it's a travesty that we sit up here and we talk to you all, but don't talk with you. I think having you all be decision makers about what it is that you need to make your businesses thrive, what it is people need who are your patients so that they can thrive. I think that it's a travesty that people really don't understand the damage that is being done to your industry. I think we need to wake up and we need to vote woke. I think when we're talking about rules, we should go as far as a 2019 audit that says that the people sitting here before us weren't even following rules. Why is it that the cannabis industry is the only one who has to follow those rules? So let's talk about equity. There's a program in Los Angeles right now where people who were disadvantaged and disproportionately dealt with, we're actually giving a program to help them start in the cannabis industry as growers and as business people. We are going to model that. We're going to model that program. So we're going to talk about no taxes because you're a medicine, and don't let anybody tell you different. And we're going to talk about modeling programs of equity. Not reinventing the wheel, but bring you to the table to make sure that we do that together. Thank you.
Thank you. One of the biggest problems with equity in the cannabis business is the barriers to entry, the costs associated with getting involved and starting up into the industry. Usually you get to a point where it's either a corporation or somebody who has venture capital money behind them. So in the future, we need to reduce the barriers to entry so people from all levels and all economic backgrounds can get involved. I have a female staffer of mine who's in the cannabis industry, and that was the number one issue. Well, number two. Number one was trying to find a spot that the city would allow things to happen. Number two was raising the capital to get started and deal with all the government fees and regulations. Remove some of that, and I think the barriers to entry will solve a lot of the problems that we see on the inequity side.
Great, thank you all very much. All right, this next question is on taxation, and just so that everybody has a little context, I'm sure if you're a consumer, you know how heavily things are taxed in the legal marketplace, but currently San Diego's cannabis tax rate as of last July moved to 8%. This is on top of a 7.75% city sales tax and a 15% excise tax coming from the state, along with various other cultivation taxes, making legal cannabis much more than 33% more expensive than the illicit market cannabis. As mayor, what would you do to alleviate this problem and bring more consumers into the legal marketplace?
Well, I would listen to the community, how we can do this together. And we just know it's just too high. And consumers cannot afford cannabis at this point. And it is really driving the underground market. And we do want taxes. We do want taxes to reinvest back into the cannabis industry. So we do want some taxes, but we want a cap on it. So, thank you.
The real solution is to solve the tax problem in San Diego. 70% of our taxes come from TOT, property tax, sales tax, franchise fees. Only 5% come from lease of city-owned land. We need to change the way we collect taxes. We don't need taxes. In fact, I'm going to tell you right now, we should not vote for any tax increases in this city until we have more accountable leadership right now. So I'm telling you, don't vote for any more taxes. And the reason you want me is that I'm going to structure government by going to the people that are responsible for making the budgets in city government. Those are the people that make more than $100,000 in this city. I'm going to put a hiring freeze on everybody who makes more than $100,000. I'm going to put a pay cut on everybody who makes more than $100,000, a 10% pay cut on them. And we're going to use that savings to start running our government better, and we're going to bring down taxes so we don't have to tax marijuana. And the solution to our real long-term problem is to get out of taxing and go to using our resource, which is land.
33%, that's a lot. My goal is to ensure the success of the legal industry and to put the illegal operators out of business. As you heard Dallin say, the state's rate is 15%. So I think anything we do has to include, there has to be pressure on the state to do their share of reducing the tax rate, and then we can have pressure locally to reduce the tax rate proportionately. But if we just do it locally, it's going to have a minimal effect compared with the state rate of 15%. So this is a bigger issue than just what we can do in San Diego. It involves the state legislature, it involves the governor, it involves all of us working together to put pressure on them so that we can ensure the long-term continued success of the legal industry.
So I'm not going to label anybody because as it stands, there's a lot of people in here, and I'm not sure all you guys got permitted or licensed, so you're not illegal, you're business owners. Let's really talk about the fact that we need to deal with restrictions, and we need to reduce those restrictions so people have access, not only access to opening businesses, but access to land use. Those are the things that we need to talk about. We need to talk about it in a real way. Now, I may not have all the answers because I'm not polished and, I'm not a career politician, but bringing you all to the table, restructuring the government, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about changing everything that has always impacted us. It's going to be a new day. It's going to be a different one. It's going to look really different because there's going to be equity across the board. We're talking about also bringing banks to the table so that they can create something, so that they can give out loans, because right now they currently don't know how to do it. Let's help them. Let's do this together. Let's make sure they understand we're not labels. We're human beings trying to survive in the world of cannabis industry. Don't be fooled by who's sitting at the table with me. They look good, but they've been your barriers. Thank you.
Thank you, and I like that question, especially since I'm the only one up here who actually voted against raising the tax on the marijuana industry. 33% is a ridiculous tax. I mean, that's almost my combined effective tax rate as an individual who's self-employed and an independent contractor outside of this business. But that is an amazing amount of tax. And what happened, you have to realize how politicians think. They think, oh, here's an industry that can produce a lot of revenue. Some people are against it, so I can use that as a justification to put a higher tax on you than everybody else. Just do what's fair and do what's right. We have taxes on tobacco, we have taxes on alcohol. Make it the same as everybody else, and let's move down the road and make sure that we have fair business practices for everybody across the board, no matter what time of legal business they have.
So it's obvious that we have not hit the right number in terms of what the taxation rate ought to be. I want to be clear, as a state legislator, I support Assemblymember Rob Bonta's Bill AB 1948, which would reduce the state's effective tax rate on cannabis. And I look forward to voting for that later in our legislative session. But here at the local level, the local taxes are actually more than what the state assesses. And so what I think we need to do is have a convening to understand what is the true cost to the city, and then size the tax to make sure that we're not drawing from our general fund, the fund that pays for road repair, police officers, libraries, et cetera, that cannabis does not cost the general fund anything, but that the tax that is assessed actually covers the cost of this industry. And that's really important, again, as we're at this early stage of the economy that we're growing here, to make sure that we don't kill it before it's able to grow. It's very obvious by the low level of tax receipts from marijuana that we have not, that it's too high, that the size of the illicit market is still so big that we are not competitive. The next mayor should have the focus of eliminating the black market and lifting up those who want to play by the rules, follow the city's regulations, and I think that has to start with a conversation about right-sizing the taxation for cannabis.
All right, thank you all. All right, next question here is regarding public safety and public health. Do you believe legalization has created any public safety or health repercussions? If yes, or even if no, could you please explain?
No. We all know, and again, having been an advocate for marijuana and an active user since I was 21 years old, so many lives have been destroyed by a law that shouldn't have been here. My mother, up until 5 years ago, believed the lie that the government told us that marijuana was dangerous. And we lost 70 years of medical research into one of the most efficacious drugs that is known to us. That's why I want to be mayor of this city, not only for the ideas that I have, but to right the wrongs that have been done under the system. And it's going to start with the way we enforce the laws here in the city of San Diego, and it's going to start with the police department. The police department does not consider marijuana as an efficacious drug. They just look at it as an excuse to arrest people or stop them. We need to have more policing realize the benefits of marijuana.
When the City Council passed our ordinance to legalize every part of the supply chain, which passed on a 6-3 vote, the current police chief at the time, Shelley Zimmerman, testified to the City Council that havoc was going to break loose, that we were going to have rampant crime everywhere. Fortunately, I discounted her testimony, and as we later learned, she had blatantly lied to us. So I don't think the industry has created any public health problems. I think it has operated very responsibly, and I look forward to working with the industry to have continued success.
Let's be clear on 100. It's a health concern the way police treat patients and yourselves. It is a health concern. I want to say this, that I'm tired of hearing people tell me at the city official level or the state level or the federal government level that they've been lied to, because they were supposed to do their own research. They were supposed to come out and talk to you as their constituents and find out about those lies and those truths. And that didn't happen. We can't just believe what we hear because we know we got a mayor that's in office right now who is a criminal and a liar. And we continue to keep on doing the same old thing. I will not be using police to criminalize businesses and patients. I will not, because this is a medicine, and they do not criminalize pharmaceutical industries that are killing us. I was dragged by police when we found out that Earl McNeil was murdered by National City Police. The only reason why I stand before you is because I use CBD oil for the pain that I'm still enduring. I'm able to get up. I'm able to move around because I have to rub it. If you don't use it, you don't understand it, they need to come and talk to you. Peace.
Yeah, I haven't seen any signs at all that there's been an increase in crime or there's any kind of crimes associated with the cannabis industry and distribution and cultivation. Quite frankly, we had an ordinance that was before us on the code update in front of committee the other day about that very subject. And I raised questions at how are you going to define what is a crime related to a marijuana shop or cannabis shop? Because what they're looking at now, if there's a car broken into 2 blocks away, then it's automatically attributed to the cannabis shop, and that's just not right. I haven't seen any issues with it whatsoever so far, and I think that going forward, when we're not seeing any issues, we shouldn't be putting any more regulations on the cannabis industry.
Dallin, you asked, do I believe? I don't have to believe. I have the data, and the data shows that the answer is no. And actually, as has been mentioned, there are others who have really used, I think, a political process to try and keep this industry down. When those of us were working on creating the first ordinance the city had, we had to overcome many of these concerns. And I want to express my appreciation to the members of the industry who are here, who we believed would, if allowed to operate legally in the city, would operate with honor, with safety, with consumer protections in mind. And you've done that. And that's why I think you have so many of us here today saying that we're interested in updating the ordinance to allow for more to operate, for there to be more equity involved in it, because we didn't believe the fear-mongering. The data has only backed that up, and you all have proven worthy of additional trust in this community. So the answer is no, not because I believe it, but because we have the data that says it, and we should take that data and move forward to make sure, again, we're building a robust market here in the legalized market, not the black market.
Read it. I don't think on this one, no.
So, yes, I haven't seen an increase in crime with cannabis. I think cannabis, basically it calms people down. It's not like alcohol that inhibits your sensorium. Now, what I have seen with cannabis recently with the FDA is the vaping, that it's affecting the lungs of people vaping, especially our teenagers. So that is a public health concern, our lungs being destroyed. We definitely want safe access. We want to find a way that we can monitor how if somebody is inebriated with cannabis. There is no way right now, because everybody absorbs cannabis in a different way. It has different synapses in your brain, different bioavailability. So definitely we want to have the dialogue and also have a committee together, like a health and safety committee to keep tabs with the public health department on cannabis, because we definitely want safe access.
All right, great. Thank you all very much. Next question is on the amount of licenses in the city. So as of now, for marijuana outlets, there are 4 are allowed in each of the 9 city council districts, so a total of 36. And there are 40 marijuana production facilities that are also allowed in the city. Do you think that, and just so everybody knows, marijuana production facilities include cultivation, manufacturing, and distribution. Do you think that this is an appropriate amount of licenses in each different license type? If not, how many would you like to see?
Now that the industry has been legal for a few years, it's time to step back and look at what it needs to go forward. And I want to do this in a public way through either the Budget Committee, which I chair, or through the Public Safety Committee, which Mona Montgomery chairs, with input from the community, with input from the industry as to what the exact number is. I don't know what the right number is, and I think it's a process that we need to go through as a city to determine what's the right number and how it should be allocated.
Again, equity. I think that the people who have been shut out need to be brought in. Those who did not provide equity, did not have what it took to open up their business, we should give them an opportunity. So it's kind of like reparations in the marijuana industry. It's due. And so I also think that we need to make sure that we're looking at how we've been doing business, how we as a city's been doing business. Now all of a sudden we want to bring you in. Well, I'm talking about having you at the decision-making table. Because again, I may not have all the answers, but you do. And you should be able to have that decision-making at the city level. I'm just a representative of you. And I need to represent you with you by my side. Not represent how I think you want to be, how you need to be, but represent how it should be. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that we should probably open it up to more. What that number is, I'm not too sure. The main thing I think we have to do first from a city level is get our own act together, because our rules and regulations are so convoluted that we've seen people in the industry weaponizing the process to try and leapfrog over each other in line and who gets one of those coveted little petitions. It reminds me of deregulating the taxi cab industry. You know, everybody wanted that coveted medallion, and it was creating a black market on medallions. Our process now, where people weaponize CEQA and weaponize some of the process, we need to get our house in order, and then it'd be much easier to open it up to more production facilities, more retail facilities, because we don't have to worry about people misusing the process to get a competitive one-up on the next person in line.
So the cap that was created was a part of a political process. It was what was necessary to get a critical vote to actually put some rules on the table. After 2 decades of inaction at City Hall, this is where the cap came from. And while it was not what in my original proposal was what was necessary to get some rules on the road, this is why I would ask the question whether or not a cap is appropriate to begin with. I think that at the current time, if we want to continue with the ordinance that we have, we should do all we can to actually hit the 36, because we're not there yet. And then we should have a broader conversation, particularly based on the positive behaviors that we've seen, that we can explain to people this is not the fear that you have. And that we should look at other communities and say, this is not what you thought. Probably the worst thing is traffic, and that's simply because we don't have enough locations in the community. Lastly, I would say, I think that it's wrong that the city of San Diego is the only one that's doing its part around here locally, or one of the few cities around here locally that's doing its part to provide direct access. The fact that other cities in our region have instituted bans and moratoriums mean that we're disproportionately bearing the responsibilities here. The mayor should use the bully pulpit to tell their colleagues in other cities to do their part, open up their markets, and make sure that we have equitable access in every corner of San Diego County, not just in the city of San Diego.
I would like to see it deregulated so that anybody can start a cannabis business. I don't see why there has to be four dispensaries in each district of San Diego. We have a big problem with people having jobs here, paying their rent. Why not encourage small business owners to be a part of this profit? Incentivize people. Create opportunities. Again, loans, easy loans, and not discriminatory loans. Let's talk about helping people. People that don't have the means, people don't have the education, people who look different, immigrants, refugees. Folks, the color of your skin does matter, and your sex does matter. So let's change it. Let's treat people with humanity. All lives matter here in San Diego. And I am that immigrant woman, that dark-skinned woman, that absolutely care about every life. And myself, I'm applying for medical privileges to be a medical provider, so anybody can come to my healing center in my farm that would have cannabis. Thank you so much. It's a truth.
That's all. You can put that one.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, what we have here is a failure of leadership. And we have to recognize that we have 3 candidates that are going to raise, between the 3 of them, $1 million apiece for a job that pays, well, it's going to go to $200,000 next year. It's $100,000 now, goes to $200,000. I want to bring leadership back to the city, especially in the cannabis industry. And the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the city council and say, you want your pay increases, we're going to have to do something for the cannabis industry. And that means we're going to have to expand the number of licenses and facilities in this city. We have an opportunity right now to make San Diego the leader of the state for the cannabis industry, and we're only giving out 4 licenses per district. There shouldn't be a limitation of license numbers. We should be trying to expand it as bottle shops. I mean, we've got some of the greatest cannabis products in the world right here, and we're arguing about whether or not we want to expand the business. No, we need more businesses. We need them in all of the districts, and we don't need to limit it.
All right, great. Thank you very much. All right, next question. This is regarding new license types in the city of San Diego. Just a little bit of context on this one as well. So for people that are consuming, if there's really nowhere that you can consume, so you can't consume in public spaces, parks, on the street, in your car, of course, we're not advocating for that. But essentially, unless you own your own home, there's really nowhere that you can legally consume. So question is, as mayor, would you support the on-site consumption of cannabis at cannabis dispensaries, a separate type of location such as a cannabis lounge or something like that, or at special events similar to a beer garden at events? Tasha.
So they already do it for the alcohol industry. So let's be real. They already do it for the alcohol industry. I do not believe in people being intoxicated and driving. So I would be against that. But in the alcohol industry, they let you stay there for like however long so that you can get it out your system and be able to drive. Why can't you do that for the marijuana industry? And let's be clear, license types, we should also have standalone delivery services, you know, so these are things that we need as well. But we need to stop reducing it to just smoking, because it's clothing. We got hempcrete. It can be used for construction. There's so many things. This is a plant that can be used for so many things in this industry, and we need to expand on that. I'm talking about more than just blowing up smoke, but I'm talking about building buildings. I'm talking about having jobs for people to actually create hemp concrete. I'm talking about us being what Todd always talks about, a big city, a great city. But we don't live that way. And so you had a lot of people talking to you today. You need to understand, don't be fooled by their lies, their misrepresentations. Don't be fooled.
Thank you. It's no secret that I enjoy a good cigar every once in a while, and a lot of times I do that at a cigar lounge or wine, you know, cigar and wine bar, those types of things. I don't see why cannabis should be any different. Now, having gone to cigar bars and those types of things, you have to worry about some of the laws about smoking and those types of things that are already on the books. But again, don't treat it any different than we would with alcohol or tobacco. It's right in the same lines. And quite frankly, if people want to go to a wine bar or someplace where they can enjoy cannabis, it's a free country. That's what they should be able to do. And just make sure you jump in an Uber or Lyft on your way home.
Should say ditto and move on. I would just point out the city successfully handles this with alcohol and with other kinds of controlled substances. Often in my line of work, people think it's impossible until it happens, right? And if they see something they've never seen before, therefore it's somehow bad. And I think that's a lot of what we come up against in the issue of cannabis. And then we don't make the association or the connection to the fact that, yes, we successfully regulate bars and liquor stores. We successfully regulate all kinds of other forms. This would be new. And that will scare a lot of people. But I'm committed, just as I was in passing the ordinance to allow for sale in San Diego, I'm committed to doing the hard work in communities to really understand how can we do this successfully in a way that allows neighborhoods to say this is okay, and to continue to follow up to make sure that we improve upon it based on real data that comes in. So I'm open to that conversation. If for no other reason than we do it for other industries, we should do it for this one. And I'd appreciate the partnership with this industry to figure out how to do it successfully here in San Diego.
Ask a question? Let's see. As mayor, would you support on-site consumption at dispensaries, at a separate use such as a cannabis lounge, or at special events that something looks like a beer garden?
I absolutely would love cannabis cafes. I would love it everywhere. Yes. And I want Christian cannabis moms. I want everything with safe access with cannabis. And also, I want to do research with more cannabis in the teen brain. I want to talk about that Because if we have teenagers consuming some cannabis instead of nicotine, their brain would be more creative. The difference in nicotine versus cannabis: nicotine is a vasoconstrictor. It makes you angry. It speeds up your system. It revs you up just like caffeine. Cannabis is a vasodilator. It releases all your inhibitions, right? So I support cafes everywhere. Yes, like the beer gardens and stuff. Let's have safe access with Lyft and Uber so people can drive home. Absolutely. Thank you.
When I was on the Prop 64 steering committee 3 weeks before the election was held, we knew we were going to win. So we took all the money we were going to spend on advertising, we spent it on a party. We rented the Hotel Andaz, and believe me, we searched all through San Diego to find a place that would allow us. And the theme of the party was Med Cards till midnight. And we told them we want to be able to have good drinks, we want to have good food, and we want to be able to smoke up there on top of the roof there. And we got the Hotel Andaz to buy off on it, and we had a great time. I thought, and the next day I said, all right, I'm going to do that next month. I'm going to have another party. I go back to the Hotel Andaz, and I said, hey, I want to do the same thing again. And they said, no, it's enforcement. We're afraid. And that's really the problem that we have right now is the enforcement has got all of the owners that have, for instance, this hotel right here. The hotel right here told us we couldn't smoke on site because they're afraid of enforcement. The real key to opening it up is to say that we want to encourage, this is a hospitality city. We live on tourists. We want you to come here. We want you to spend your money. We want you to drink here. We want you to enjoy good food. And best of all, marijuana.
I don't know that there's anything left to say. Let's go have a good time. No. I think the other candidates have spoken very articulately. This is a highly regulated industry. Whatever we do is going to be highly regulated. The way I approach an issue like this is I'd like to research how other cities are doing it, to learn their best practices, to figure out what's going to work best in San Diego, to work with you and the community in figuring out a way to get this done in a reasonable way. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, I don't know how I'm going to follow up on those responses with another question here. But we do have just a few more minutes, probably about time for about one more question. So we want to get to one of the questions from the audience here. What can the city do to educate consumers on the importance of supporting the licensed marketplace? We'll jump back to you. Yeah. But if anybody wants to start first on this one.
Do the same thing we do with other markets, public relations campaigns, public outreach, public awareness campaigns to make them sure that what you can and can't do. I mean, it's pretty simple. When it comes down to it, at the end of the day, most people I know are pretty informed about the marijuana industry and the cannabis industry. It's just the way it is. So if we get the word out by the city on what's legal, permitted, what's not, then people usually can find that information.
I would look forward to working with the industry as a partner, the city and in the industry, on a weed-wise educational effort to make sure people understand the dangers of the illicit market in terms of consumer protections and the quality of the product, and then the benefits to the city of actually investing in the businesses that are helping to employ our neighbors and paying proper taxes and actually setting a good example for the communities so that we can allow, again, the continued growth of the industry. And then importantly, the benefit of paying back to the city to support an overall ecosystem. So I think that there is a role for this is to be done. Again, a lot of this is going to be new, but that doesn't scare me, right? This is actually the exciting part of the job. Issuing permits and filling potholes. Well, the city isn't so good at filling potholes, but we know how to do some of these things well. This is the part where you can be entrepreneurial, innovative. Let's do something first for once, rather than always wait to find out what other cities have done and try and copy it. Let's be the folks that get a shot at saying, this is going to be a cool way to do it, and this might be one of the best ones, because we all benefit. Those who are following the rules and the city have a common interest in making sure that people, consumers, are involved in the legal market, not patronizing the illicit market.
So cannabis, marijuana, is a herb, and it really started to help us spiritually. The sadhus and the yogis in India use it. The aesthetics It's a way of getting closer to God. We as humans, we're spiritual beings. Let's put that on the table here. It's not potholes, it's not anything. It's human relation, it's love, it's compassion. If we don't have our health, we don't have anything. So cannabis, we want to inform everybody that it's not an evil drug. That it's not a class 1 drug like a hallucinogenic like LSD or dilaudid or one of these class 1 drugs. It's not. It's very safe. Yes, CBD now, they made it class 2. So nurse practitioners can prescribe it. Now we can prescribe class 2 CBD. Absolutely. Do more research in cannabis. UCSD has a big center in research right now. And be a part of that. Get the medical school students involved, the nursing school students, the psychiatric school students, the psychological school students involved. And so we can teach what healing is in this community. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's all about leadership and change. And I will tell you this. You have 3 candidates here. They're all elected. They've already been in the process, and you see what the process is. If you want the process to continue the way it is right now, vote for one of the 3. If you want serious change, if you want some leadership that came up through the ranks, who was out there protesting the laws back in 1998, God, it's been so long. I'm 72 years old. You know, I can't tell you how excited I am to be running for mayor and talking to you and telling you that I did smoke marijuana. 10 years ago, nobody would have told you if you were running for mayor you had a chance to say that you'd smoked marijuana in your life. But if you want change, I represent change. I will make that change, and I will lead this city into the 21st century as a cannabis-friendly city, as a tourist stop for people who want to enjoy the beautiful weather, the beautiful food, the great liquor, and best of all, the greatest dope in the world.
So when I was writing the law that this council eventually passed, legalizing every part of the supply chain, Dallin and others arranged for me to visit various facilities throughout the city. And I came away very impressed with the professionalism of the industry. We have an amazing industry here. As you heard, Gita said, we have groundbreaking research happening at UCSD. We have entrepreneurial companies starting all over the county to serve this industry. As mayor, when I give speeches, I'm going to be visibly talking about what San Diego is doing. I'm going to be visibly visiting our facilities so that people see it's okay, why it's important to support our legal industry. I will be a symbol of why it's important to support our legal industry, because I will be out there talking to it publicly and showcasing all the great things that are happening in our region to support this industry.
So along this race, I've been with some of these people the whole time. And one thing that brings to mind is that they can show you what they have will do by what they have done. Todd says that quite often. Let me tell you about deregulation. Pharmaceutical industry is not regulated. Vaccines are not regulated. Both have been known to kill people. Both have been known to injure people. We're talking about an industry where they're trying to get rid of your existence. Your advocacy has not been heard. And I'm saying that's not going to happen with me. Not because I want to become courageous and bold, but because I am. I stand before you as the next mayor to tell you all that you are so powerful. They just didn't recognize it. Now you have a change agent that you can get behind that will make sure regulation does not limit you. It does not stop your existence. It does not harm you as it has continued to do. Let's talk about this, because you are an industry that can put the next mayor in the seat. Thank you.
Alrighty, so we're getting a little low here on time, but I do want to just give all the candidates about a minute just on closing thoughts. So anything you want to kind of wrap up with, anything that we might not have discussed so far, any other thoughts you might have. And then Senator McGuire, you can go ahead and start that.
Sure. Well, let me just be very clear. When I was elected to the city council in 2008, we had over 200 dispensaries that were operating in the city without any rules or regulations. For almost 2 decades, no one took up this issue. No one decided to lean in and make something happen. It took courage to do that, to put together a council majority, to overcome a mayor who was opposed to it, to overcome a referendum and actually get some rules on the books. That is what I did, not because I am intimately familiar with the industry, but I saw a need in the community of a nascent industry that could be doing something great for our communities and neighborhoods that were fearful. And you needed a leader who would go out there and do the hard work of bringing people together to get a law on the books. An imperfect law, a law that has since been amended, but a law that actually created an industry. That is what I did. And I hope that you see that past leadership is what you need in the next mayor and the next leader of this city. Last thing I would say, a great friend of mine is supporting my campaign. You may have met him, Bill Walton. Bill, when I called him up to ask for his support, he said, Todd, I only want 3 things from you. I want us to be the number one solar city in the United States, the number 1 bike city in the United States, and the number 1 cannabis city in the United States. Can you do that for me, Todd? I said, yes, Bill, I can. I got you have my support. I'm committed to making sure that this happens. I think that there's something really positive here that we can do together. This is about being a good, big, world-class city that embraces who it is. That's why I'm running for mayor. I ask for your support on March 3rd. Thank you all very much.
So, for me, I'm about universal health care. We know we have a disparity in health based on your income and based on your skin color. I want to see everybody get equitable health care. As mayor of San Diego, I want to put a cap on rent. I want to have tiny homes. I want high schoolers to be bought into a program where we can get educated and have your own loan so you can buy your property from a young age. That's something I want to see everybody in San Diego owning a tiny home. Can we get a tiny home for $25,000? I think we can. We can use some hemp to make some houses. Do you know that? We can use hemp to do anything. I am into trees. I'm a health buff. I'm an advocate of everything perfect, perfect lives, love, compassion, human dignity. So let's bring that here to San Diego. I'm your mayor. I'm a long-time girl here, and I want to stay in San Diego, and I want San Diego to be safe for everybody. I want our legal system and our police system to be fair in how it treats people. Thank you.
Well, I recognize a lot of you because you know that I was here when it opened up because I have a booth here, And I have a booth here because I support the cannabis industry. And I've supported the cannabis industry all my life. I was 21 years old. And unfortunately, I had to do it with the criminals. But now, because, and the reason that I'm running for mayor the 3rd and final time is the first 2 times I tried, I came in very close to finishing. If I finished in the top 20% this time, I will be in the runoff. I promised my father I would do it one more time, and I will do it one more time. And the only reason I stopped the last time is my son was born, and my wife said, it's more important that you raise your son than you become mayor of the city. My son has been graduated from college now. The mayor is termed out, and I want to bring you leadership. I want to bring you change. And the way I'm going to change this is with 3 great ideas. Stop the sale of city-owned land. I'm going to change the way we do our pensioning to Social Security, and I'm going to put a hiring freeze on everybody who makes $100,000 more in our city government. Thank you all for listening to me. God bless you all.
So as a relatively new council member, I stood up to a mayor and a police chief who did not want to legalize the entire supply chain. In fact, as many of you may remember, Shelley Zimmerman told us the world was going to fall apart if we did do it. But I did my homework, and I understood the importance of this industry, the fact that I think over 60% of San Diego voters wanted it legalized, and it was our responsibility as council members to do it in a responsible way. And my office wrote the legislation that passed on a 6-3 vote. I'm an entrepreneur. That's what I did for 30 years before I joined the San Diego City Council. And I'm going to bring that entrepreneurial background to City Hall and how we operate. We have to operate in an accountable and transparent way. And I know many of you have found the rules opaque, hard to understand, and that is not acceptable. We have a City Hall that has not been responsive to its residents. And I will change that on day 1. That is my commitment. A city hall that works for our residents, not for so-called special interests. Thank you.
Don't be fooled. They've all worked for special interests. Don't be fooled. They have not changed anything currently in the positions that they're in, and they're telling you they'll change them now when they become mayor. Let them know what a mayor looks like that's courageous and bold. You are an industry that has people from all walks of life, all races, all nations, all colors, all economic status backgrounds. You are more powerful than you ever know. And today I'm telling you that you can put a new mayor, a change agent, into the mayor's seat. I'm telling you that we can deregulate, that we can make this industry a medicinal industry and not a criminal one. They have criminalized you. They have demonized you. They have told you you are not worthy by everything that they have done. They have shown you how they feel about you. And I'm saying, let's change the game. I'm changing that game. I'm here today. Someone who has lived in poverty, who's not supposed to be on this table at this seat with them. I'm telling you, we can change it. Bring it and let's change it today as business people, as users, as people who have health issues that need this medicine. Let's change it, because if you don't, you will still get the same. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, before I ran for office, I was 27 years a small business owner, and I've been in politics for 7, but I still think like a small business owner because of my background there. And I promise you as mayor, the one thing I will do is make sure that your industry is not treated any differently, any better, or any worse than any other industry. It's about fairness across the board without looking at all the other things that get in the way. Just get the regulations and the red tape out of the way. There's a encumbrance for a lot of businesses. I remember starting up our small business, when there was just 3 of us. The government regulations and fees and everything was a hindrance to getting started. We need to reduce that and make sure that you guys are treated the same as everybody else, and that San Diego is fair and open to competition wherever it may be.
All right, and that's all we have today. So please give a hand to all of our candidates. Thank you all so much.